Okay, so today we get to learn how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Well, they'll say division for tomorrow or some other day, but add, subtract, multiply, polynomials. So, pretty easy stuff today. Okay, apparently we're not ready to start. You guys ready? No, if you're going to talk, just go in the hallway. I'm okay with that. Okay, so if you're taking Cornell notes, you can go ahead and write down the objective and the essential question. Students will be able to add, subtract, multiply polynomials. There are some special patterns we should learn, and I'd recommend memorizing these special patterns when we get to them later on. Should probably keep our cell phones from distracting us. Yeah, get them. Okay, so some people like to add and subtract vertically. Some people like to add and subtract horizontally. So I'm going to show you both ways, and then hopefully find the one that works for you. So, whoops, let's back up. Hold up. Let me get my pen going here. So if we add these in vertical formats, what we like to do is line up the terms. So I'm going to write like 2x cubed here first, and then minus 5x squared plus 3x minus 9. And then I take these terms and I place them right underneath the terms above that are like terms. For example, this x cubed should go under the x cubed, so I'm going to put another one right here. And the 6x squared should go right underneath this one. And then the 11 goes over here under this one. And so now you can just add like you've done before in the past. Remember, you can only add like terms. If they're not like terms, you can't combine them. So this gives us 3x cubed. This gives us 1x squared. And that, naturally you don't really need the 1, but I'll just leave it in there for a moment. And that's all there is to adding polynomials. Okay, so that's the vertical format way. Now to do it the horizontal way, it's pretty easy also. All you basically need to do it in the horizontal way is put a plus sign right here, and then just look for terms that are the same degree or like terms. Well, this 3y squared, you're looking over here and you're saying don't see any cubes here. So we're going to continue to just write this one down, 3y cubed. But this one, we look over here and say, oh wait, that one combines with this one, and they're both negative. So when you add two negative numbers, you get a bigger negative number. And so you get negative what? 6y squared. And now this one here is a negative 7y. Are there any y? Well, here's some y's right here, so we could combine those. This one's negative and this one's positive, so we basically subtract them and keep the sign of the larger one. The larger one is negative, so we're going to get negative 5y. And then we should take care of this minus 5 here. And so that's all there is to adding and subtracting horizontally and vertically. I mean, at least adding. Subtraction is not much harder, but strangely enough, people miss these. And I don't know how, but people miss this all the time. So let's look at subtraction. It's a little bit trickier. So one thing that's tricky, I think, for some students is that we see this word from. So if you saw the statement subtract 9 from 6. How do we write that? Is this 9 minus 6, or is this 6 minus 9? Yeah, this is, you're taking this one and subtracting it from this one. So this is the correct setup. So that being said, what we should have, according to how this reads, we're taking this expression here and we're going to subtract it from this one. So we start off with this one, and I'm going to show you the vertical format first. So we start off with 8x cubed minus x squared minus 5x plus 1. Now, just like when we add, we put all the polynomials under here, except for I'm going to put a parentheses here because we're subtracting. So I'm going to put this subtraction sign. And now, once again, I'm going to try and stack these right underneath their corresponding like term from the first polynomial. So I'm going to put 3x cubed here. I'm going to put 2x squared here minus x plus 7. Now when you're subtracting, you basically have to take the sign and distribute it on the inside of these parentheses. So you're going to change this one to a minus, change that one to a minus, change this one to a plus, and change that one to a minus. Okay? And now after you've done that, you've changed the signs. It's the same as addition now. So 8 minus 3, or 8 plus a negative 3, gives you 5x cubed. These are both negative, so you get a bigger negative. And this one's negative and this one's positive, so you subtract and keep the sign of the bigger one. Well, the bigger one is negative 5, so this is going to be negative 4x. And then negative 7 plus 1, that's negative 6. So subtraction is not a whole lot harder. You just have to remember to distribute the negative to all the terms in here. And basically, to distribute a negative, you just change the sign. So this one becomes negative, this one becomes negative, this one becomes positive, and this one becomes negative. It's not too terribly hard. If you use the horizontal format, well, then you just need to distribute your negative. And I can show you that one here. So what we would do is we take this one, we're going to subtract this one from that one, so we put the negative right here and we distribute. And basically distributing a negative just means change the sign. So if this one was positive, change it to a negative. And this one is a negative, so it becomes a positive z. This one becomes a negative 3. Now this one remains unchanged, so we're going to write it down again. So plus 4z squared plus 9z minus 12. Alright, well now what we do is we see if we can combine like terms. I see this one combines with this one, right? And this one, you can always tell whether it's negative or positive because there will be an operator in front. Here's the operator. Now if there is no operator in front, we assume it's positive. Right? So negative 5z and 4z squared, that should give me negative 1z squared. And this z and this one, they're both, the operator says that they're both positive. So we get 10z. 10z. And then finally this one combined with this one, they're both negative, so we get a bigger negative. Oh, hold up. That could lead to a misunderstanding. And I think that's it. Naturally, you don't really need the 1 in front, but it doesn't hurt to have it. Any questions on adding and subtracting? Yeah, Joel, you have a question?
So you don't flip the other ones? Like the one...
We're told to subtract this one from this one. So we change the signs only on this group. Okay? So do me a favor, instead of doing these two, can you do your study guide? On your study guide, let's see. You can do a couple of them right now. How about if you do numbers 1 and 2 on your study guide? Okay, I'll give you about 2 minutes. That should be plenty of time to do this. So I'm gonna pause my show here. Okay, so now we're gonna learn how to multiply. Bam. And once again, I'll try to show you a vertical format. And so, and then I'll show you a horizontal format. So, let me back this up. All right. So, multiply these things. So what I'm going to do is write this like this. Okay, watch how this works. Please watch. It's a pretty easy way to do this. Nancy, are you ready? Okay, so you start off with the first term down here. And this should remind you of two-digit multiplication from elementary school. But you start off with this one, you multiply it by each of these guys up here. Bam. And you go here. So negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12. Okay, and then negative 2 times 3y is negative 6y. And so this one was a positive, right? Because a negative times a negative is a positive. And then negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So we're going to have a positive 4y squared. Okay, then you repeat the process with this one. Okay? And you take this one and multiply it, just kind of like two-digit multiplication. But you multiply by each one of these like this. So, and then what you do is you stack your like terms underneath each other. So y, when it multiplies by negative 6, I get negative 6y. I'm going to put it right here underneath this term. And then y times 3y is a positive 3y squared. Now this one, I'm going to continue to the left over here. I get y times negative 2y squared. I get negative 2y cubed. Now the nice thing again is that you can add them vertically. Pretty easy stuff, right? So it's a pretty good method. Well, there's nothing combined with this one, so I get negative 2y cubed plus 7y squared. Now these two negatives do not give you 0. They're both negative, so you get negative 12y. And then we get plus 12. That's a pretty nice way to multiply, actually. So that's the vertical method, using the vertical format. Now, on the test, I'm not going to care which way you do it. Whatever way works best for you is what I would choose. So let me demonstrate the horizontal method. The horizontal method is more like you're maybe used to. Probably seen it many times. So let me erase this. And now I'll show you the horizontal method. And so in this case we'd take x plus 3 and basically what you need to do when you're doing the horizontal format is that you just need to do the distributive property twice. So you start out distributing here, here, and here. And you just kind of write them all together in one big long format. Now, I want to show you two different ways to do this. Some people, well, I want to show you two ways. Okay, some people will do this. Let me back this up just a little bit. Some people take the x here and they multiply it by the whole thing. So then they say x times 3x squared minus 2x plus 4. And then they take this one and they multiply it by the whole thing. So they say plus 3 times 3x squared minus 2x plus 4. Can you see what I did? Does it make sense what I did? And then what they do is they distribute here. So this one times this one is 3x squared cubed, excuse me, 3x cubed. And then this one times this one minus 2x squared, and then plus 4x. And then this one plus 9x squared minus 6x and plus 12. Now what we do is we look for like terms. I don't see any other cubes over here, right? So that one kind of going solo. And this one will combine with this one though, and this one's negative and this one's positive, so I get plus 7x squared. And then I get this one plus this one. That one's positive, this one's negative, so I subtract and keep the sign of the bigger one, right? So 6 minus 4 would be 2. But the bigger one of these two is negative, so the overall addition here is negative. So negative 2x. I'm taking care of this one, this one, this one, this one. Oh, the 12 is still by itself. And so, get that. So there's our horizontal method. Now let me just show you another way that some people will do the horizontal method.
These are all ways that are wrong.
What's that?
Are these all ways that are wrong?
No, these are ways that work. You can choose whichever one works best for you. So let me show you. Some people skip this step here. They just start the multiplication right off the bat. You see? A lot of people think this step here is wasting time. Why not just start that? You know, they go from here basically to there. So if you that's the way you want to think of it too, I mean that's fine. I have to admit I wouldn't do that. To me that is like an extra step. But some people like it that way, so if it works for you, great. Well, so what I would do, I would start off multiplying this one. I get 9x squared. I get minus 6x. And I get plus 12. Now I've taken this term and I've multiplied it by all three. So now I'm done with it. That one's done. So now what I do is multiply with this one and I distribute among all three here. So I do x times this one and I get plus 3x cubed. And I do this one times this one and I get minus 2x squared. And then finally this one times this one gives me plus 4x. Well, so that's kind of what we got on this step down here, and so we kind of skipped that step. Now, are there any like terms? Well, this one combines with this one, right? So I'm going to write 7x squared. And I notice this guy right here is the highest degree, so I'm going to write that one first. So I get 3x cubed plus. Now this one combines with this one, right? So negative 6x and 4x. That gives me the negative 2x. And then finally this 12 is all by itself, so plus 12. I think for the most part, the horizontal method people would choose this one. But whatever works. I mean. Okay, so you have your study guide, and I think what we're ready to do, go ahead and do Well, let me just do one more example, I think, before we go on to the study guide. What happens if you have 3 terms that you have to multiply? Well, basically what you do in that case is you multiply the first 2 together and simplify it, and then multiply by the third one. So if you wanted to, you can multiply this one by using the FOIL method. Remember, first times first, FOIL method. So, and then after we do the FOIL method with these first 2, we will then multiply by the third one. So first times first gives me x squared, and then this one gives me a plus x, right? And then this one gives me a minus 5x. So those 2 combined together give me negative 4x. And then finally, last times last gives me minus 5. Okay, so then after we've multiplied those 2 together, we're going to multiply by the third one. Now, I happen to like the vertical stacking method, but if you prefer, you can put this one right underneath and do the vertical stacking method. Like, well, there's lots of options here, so why don't we put this one right underneath? Get my eraser going. And after we're done with this, I'll show you a second way. I'm going to show you a second way that you could do it that's kind of like vertical stacking as well. And again, you can choose afterwards which method you like best. I mean, whatever method you like that keeps you from making mistakes. The vertical stacking method, we start off, you just multiply by all 3 here. Okay, so here you get negative 15. Here you get negative 12x. And finally you get 3 times x squared. That's 3x squared. So we're done with this one. And now I'll use a different color. Now you do the same thing with this term, and you multiply it by all 3. But as you do so, you stack them underneath the corresponding like term. So x times negative 5, negative 5x. X times this one, negative 4x squared. And this one times this one is a positive x cubed. So once again, you can add straight up and down. X cubed. Well, let's see, this one's a positive 3x squared, right? So negative and positive there give you negative 1x squared minus 17x minus 15. Now once again, you don't really need to have this 1 sitting out in front, but I think I'll just leave it there. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Oh yeah, they can cross out sometimes. I mean, if they're positive and negative and they're opposite in sign, they can cross out. Well, let me just show you a slight variation of this. Let's say we take this x here and multiply it by all 3. I'll show you another vertical stacking method. You can multiply and you get x cubed, and here you get minus 4x squared, and then you get minus 5x. Now we're done with this x. So now we could use a different color, and I'll start off by doing the same thing with these. Take this 3 here and multiply it by all 3 again. And as I go, I'm going to stack underneath. So this gives me like 3x squared, and it's positive. And this one gives me a minus 12x. And finally, the last grouping gives me negative 15. So once again, I add them straight up and down. Negative x cubed minus 1x squared minus 17x minus 15. Now, between these two, I'm not sure which one you like better, but whatever works for you. So now we're ready to go ahead and do numbers 3 and 4. So I'm going to pause the video. So special products now. Some of these you should recognize already from back when we were doing chapter 1. We saw this, right? We were doing factoring the difference of two squares. Remember how it factors? One of them has to be plus, one of them has to be minus, because there is no middle term. And remember, we discovered back in the past that in order to have like a, in order to have a 0 in the middle, like a 0 AB here, the only way that can happen is if one of them is positive, one of them is negative. Because look what happens. You get that one, and you get negative AB. And then you multiply this one, and you get a positive AB. Okay? And so those subtract off, and that's how you get 0. There's no middle term. So you've seen this one in the past. So that's a special pattern that you should recognize. We've seen this one in the past. We've seen this one in the past as well. Those are all special patterns that you should recognize. And if you look here, you end up with an a squared and a b squared. A squared and the b squared. But you have double the middle term. And it's pretty easy to see what happens here. If you square this, this is equal to y plus 3, right? Times y plus 3. Well, if you FOIL this out, you get y squared. You get 3y. And here comes your second one, plus 3y. And then finally, last times last, plus 9. So these two combine, and so you get y squared plus 6y plus 9. Now the other way to do it is just to realize, hey, this is a special pattern, so I square this one, square that one, multiply the two together and double it. So I don't know, but again, we saw a lot of this in chapter 1. I want to spend more time talking about the cubes, okay? And that's these guys. Okay, so this is a special pattern, and my friends, this is what I'm going to recommend. Memorize these, and these you should already have memorized already, but I would memorize these. And the reason why is because we're going to be factoring these pretty soon. And it's going to be a whole lot easier to factor these if you have the pattern memorized. So let's look at this pattern here and see why it comes out this way. Okay? So you start off with a plus b. And then after I multiply this out, I'm going to show you an easy way to remember the coefficients. Pardon me, that's a cube up there. Well, isn't that equal to a plus b times a plus b plus a plus b? I don't know about you, but I don't know about you, but these can be kind of annoying to drag this out and just So a times a gives you a squared, and a times b gives you an ab, and b times a gives you another ab, and b times b is b squared. And we're going to multiply that whole thing by a plus b. Now, we already know from this special pattern that you double the middle term. That's what's happening right here. A plus, that's why you have double there. So you get a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And we're going to multiply this by a plus b. So we do this one times this one. Isn't this fun? A times a squared is a cubed. A times this one. Now be careful here. Look what happens. You get the 2, but a times a gives you a squared. Well, you still have this b to carry along. You guys see that one there? A times a gives you the a squared. B comes along, and then you multiply this one. This gives you a times b squared. Now these two are different. Make sure you understand that these are different terms. This one has an a squared. This one has an a to the 1 power. Okay? Well, we're not quite done. What we need to do now is repeat the process by multiplying this guy now by all 3. So this one times this one. And what we'd like to do is stack them underneath if we can. So b times a squared, well, that's going to be the same as this one. It's going to be having a squared and a b. And let me do this real quick. This is starting to get messy. Let me use my tools here and use my capture tool. See if I could get this on a separate sheet. Oh, that didn't help a whole lot. Let me use my snipping tool then. That's kind of annoying. What? Yeah, hang on. Now I'm trying to make things easier for myself. I'm making them more complicated. Okay, let's do this. I want to go to a new sheet and do this. So that way you could see all the steps. Okay, so we're doing a plus b, and finally a plus b. So we multiplied those two out, and we ended up with a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And now we need to multiply this one times a plus b. And we were doing this. And we started out this one times this one over here, and over here. So we ended up with a cubed plus 2a squared b. And then this one times this one is plus ab squared. Okay. So now we do repeat the process with these 3, okay? So b times a squared, that's actually going to be right here. It has an a squared b, and there's like a 1 out in front. And then this one times this one gives me 2ab squared, and then this one times this one plus b cubed. Now we add vertically, and we get a cubed plus 3a squared b plus 3ab squared plus b cubed. Now, I want you to notice certain things that are going on that'll make this a lot easier. A couple things to note here. Number 1, do you see the powers on the a? They're going down by 1. It's like 3, 2, 1. And then as you go and you get the b's start going up by 1. There's 1, 2, 3. That's how these always work out. Now let me just show you something that's helpful. It's called Pascal's triangle. It's kind of a neat thing. And I'm going to show you how Pascal's triangle works. Ready? 1, 1, 1. As soon as you get the pattern figured out, you can create more of the triangle yourself. And the next one's going to be 1, 2, 1. The next one's going to be 1, 3, 3, 1. The next one's going to be 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. And so how am I creating this triangle? Well, if you take a look here, what you do to get this number, for example, is you add those two and you get that one. So you go with 1s down the diagonal. And so if you add these two, you get 3. Add those two, you get 3. And then you could start off with a 1. Add these two, you get a 4. Add these two, you get a 6. Add these two, you get a 4. Add this, and you just keep doing 1. So the next row is going to have a 1 here, right? Add those two, you get a 5. Add these two, you get a 10. Add these two, you get a 10. This one you get a 5, and this one you get a 1. Why am I showing you this? Well, take a look at this row right here. Do you see that there's a 1 here? Do you see a 3 here, a 3 here, and a 1? Those are your coefficients of the cubic of this. And do you notice that pattern right there? Here. This, you might not be amused by this yet, but this makes our work a lot easier, doesn't it? If you can catch on to what this idea is saying. Take a look here. These are the coefficients. So if I had a plus b and I had it cubed, what I could say is that it's going to be an a cubed, and then I'm going to have an a cubed. Now remember, the a's go down by 1 each time. So it's going to be an a squared b, and then the a goes down again, and now the b's start going up, b squared, and finally I end up with a b cubed. Now, what numbers go in front? A 1, a 3, a 3, and a 1. Now, wasn't that easy? Instead of multiplying that all out, I can use these coefficients to help me.
Should those never change?
Well, let me show you another one. Pay attention. So let's say we had like 2x plus 5, and I'm going to cube that. Okay, so let me show you how you can use this idea there. First thing, you're going to have 2x cubed, and then you're going to have a 2x, whoops, then you're going to have a 2x, remember, that's going to be squared, and then you have to put in the b. And then you're going to have a 2x, and then the b is the one that's being squared. And then finally you have a 5 cubed. So this is your a, this is your b. Now do you see what happened here? Now, there's your a squared b, there's your ab squared, and there's your b cubed. Now, there's one last step to do here. If you're going to take this shortcut, and you're going to use Pascal's triangle, you have to put a 1, a 3, and a 3, and a 1. You see? And then what you have to do is simplify this a little bit. And so what do we have here? To simplify this one, we're going to have 2x times 2x times 2x, right? But isn't that 8x cubed? And this one would be what? 4x squared. And then you multiply that one by 5, you get 20. And multiply it by 3, you get 60. And then this one is this one's 5 squared, all right? That's 25, right? 25 times 2 is 50. You have 50x times 3, 150x. And 5 cubed is 125. So you have plus 125. I don't know about you, but this is quite a bit faster. It's a shortcut. If you wanted to, you also have the freedom to multiply this out the long way, and you should come up with the same exact answer I came up with. So, for example, if you wanted to, it's totally up to you, and you can do this for homework tonight. You could have written this as 2x plus 5 times 2x plus 5 plus 2x plus 5. And you can multiply these two together, and you get some expression, and then you multiply it by 2x plus 5. And after a while, you multiply all that out, you would have ended up with that. So, what I want you to do for homework, we're kind of running out of time here, I want you to go ahead and finish up the study guide and work on the assignment. Tomorrow, we're actually going to do the quiz practice. So, I'm not giving you a full period tomorrow to do this assignment. So it's only about a half hour's work of homework, so you can do it for homework. And this is where we'll stop.